Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And although I have put my bikes away for the season, I did have one other video that I did have in the can that I hadn't put out yet. And the good thing about the channel that I do anyway is that I get a chance to go on a bunch of different bikes. Some new, some old. I really like going on the older bikes, especially the fat boys. I'll ride anything I can get my hands on. So I was out at the local dealership, Prairie Harley Davidson, and I was speaking with the sales manager, Sean, out there, and I said, I wouldn't mind doing a video on your bike sometime. And he said, you know what? Have at her. So it's not every day that you get a Harley Davidson sales manager to say, yeah, take my bike out for a ride. So that is what I did. And this bike is for you folks who have or who like a little bit of a touch of nostalgia. So without any further holdup, this is Sean's Heritage Softail Springer. Well, here we are out at my local dealer, Prairie Harley Davidson, and this is the 100th anniversary Harley Davidson Heritage Softail Springer. These 100th anniversary bikes are easily noticeable by their tank badging and paint schemes. The colors I most identify these bikes with are the two-tones, especially the two-tone sterling silver and vivid black. As you can see, this Heritage here is in the solid vivid black. These bikes came with the twin cam 88 engine, which at the time was still a newer engine as it had only been in the Softails for a few years. These bikes also had a 5-speed transmission. For some numbers, this is about an 8-foot long bike, which has a ground clearance of 5.6 inches. We also have a 66.6-inch wheelbase and a 5-gallon fuel tank, and this bike weighs in at close to 750 pounds. And I could get into more specs, but there's just so much on this bike. I'll get to those later as we go for a ride. But obviously, the big thing on this bike is the Springer front end. I don't see a lot of these around, which is probably why Sean jumped on this when it came in. Harley does not make bikes like this anymore. This bike is classic. It's written all over it, and I don't want to go through everything on a walk around before I get on it and try it out. Now, for what something like this would cost today, depending on the mileage and condition, you're probably still looking at 5 figures, whether you're here in Canada or down in the States. And I had a hard time finding an exact price as to what this would have cost new, but I believe it was around $24,000 US, which I think would have been just over 30,000 Canadian. But enough talking, let's get to riding this bad boy. So as I said before, this is Sean, the sales manager's bike out here at Prairie Harley. And I thought I would share just a little information about Sean that I found interesting, because Sean owns quite a few bikes, but the one interesting thing is that this is the first and only Harley he owns. He actually is a very big Triumph fan. And he's also the president of our Sport Bike Association here in Saskatchewan. So how many Harley salesmen do you know like that? But just thought I'd point that out. But now for the bike. Obviously, the biggest thing about this bike is the styling, because let's face it, the company does not have anything in production like this anymore. And that is something that needs to change. Harley, in my opinion, is missing out on a section of customers by not looking back at their heritage, pardon the pun. These bikes are chromed out head turners. Harley has gone far too far away from its classics. Now, usually I'll start talking about the engine before much else when I'm out on a ride like this, but again, the star of the show is the suspension. This is a Springer, and that refers to the front end. The front has a chromed out iconic Springer leading link suspension. There is really nothing like seeing those big chrome springs out in the front, and they just glide over bumps. It's a bit of a unique experience seeing how the forks operate while you're riding. As for the rear, we have the dual hidden shocks up under the frame to keep that hardtail look, and I've always said that I prefer this rear suspension design over the stiffer monoshock that we have in the Softails now. Powering this stunner, we have the solid-mounted, air-cooled, counterbalanced 88B cubic inch twin cam engine. These engines stock put out about 67 horsepower, and as for torque, the 88 put around 86 foot-pounds of torque. Really makes you see the increases in performance these days. But this engine still moves this bike well. These were built for cruising down the highway, not for breaking land speed records. The air cleaner on this bike came with the twin cam football style setup stock. This one has a classic round cover that you would more likely see on a 70 shovel head, and it fits the bike well. And one other nod to Harley's 100th anniversary is the small anniversary badge stamped into the left side casing. The exhaust on these bikes was a dual system that exited on each side, so a little different from the right side staggered exhaust on the other heritage models of the time, like say the Classic. We also have fishtails on these pipes as well, and they sound really good. Video does not do these things justice. Now, as I said before, this bike does have a 5-speed transmission, and if we're being honest, I completely forgot about that when I took the bike out. I got it up to 5th gear, and then I went for a 6th. Like, it's been quite a while since I've been on a 5-speed. This bike also has a stronger clutch in it, and you can tell by the stiffer pull on the lever. It also gives it a little bit different friction zone, because as soon as you start to let out the clutch, you can tell this thing just wants to go. Comfort on this bike is nice. This has a nice classic seat with some fringe on the side. It also has a plump passenger seat as well that can offer a little bit of lower back support. Stock, these came with a small metal frame behind the rider's seat, but it has been removed on this particular bike, and I'm not sure how comfortable that would have been for someone to lean on. Other than that, we have footboards and an upright riding position. On this specific bike, the bars have been changed out. In stock form, we would have had much lower handlebars, but these are 12-inch Wild Ones handlebars with a 2-inch riser. So we do have a 14-inch rise overall. And for someone like me with a little more gangly arms, it fits pretty well. We also have steel braided lines to go along with it. The wheels on this bike are also head turners. These wheels are spoked and are 16-inch front and back, and they came with Dunlop white walls. I believe a 130 on the front and a 150 on the back. I could be wrong on that. Someone could let me know in the comments if I am. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the fenders that covered these wheels. They had that older style, slightly flared look, with the front having a classic running light. And stopping these wheels, we had a single caliper on the front and back. The bike I'm on has had the front brakes switched out to a Performance Machine brake caliper. Now, the Springer also came with leather saddlebags. They come with some classic styling, but the only issue with some of these bags is that over time they could end up a bit out of shape. These bags also came with combination style clips. And there is not a whole lot of tech on these bikes. You aren't going to find LEDs here. It has a classic bullet style headlight along with accessory lights on either side. And you have to check out the horn out front on this bike. Very old style Harley Davidson. We have the large gauge mounted in the dash on the tank that gives you an analog speedo and small digital display. Underneath that, there's a small strip of indicator lights, and below that, we of course have the locking ignition switch, which has the 100th anniversary branding. The fuel gauge on this generation of Softails is mounted inside the left side gas cap. Folks, this bike, in a nutshell, is like I said previously, it's a head turner. You look if you see this thing sitting outside a dealer or riding down the highway. I said it before and I'll say it again, this bike is a classic and something that the company no longer produces. This bike has some of those small touches that you don't see without looking close. For example, the striping on the tank has small Harley Davidson writing throughout it. There's just so much you can see and talk about. I could definitely see how someone with a taste for nostalgia would jump on a bike like this. Very nice and very classy. And I have to thank Big Bad Sean out at Prairie Harley Davidson for letting me take his personal ride out for a rip. He is the guy who gets me out on bikes from the dealership, so I really can't thank him enough for the opportunities I've got over the last couple years. If any of you folks out there are in the area and looking for a bike, give Sean a call. I'll have contact info in the description below. But that will do it for me for this week, folks. If the weather is still good in your area, get out there while you can, and I will catch you in the next one.